The viewpoints expressed on Night Fright are not necessarily those of the host, the staff, the sponsors, or the affiliate stations. Tonight's program may contain graphic themes or images. Viewer discretion is advised.
There is a time for question. There is a time for answers. There is a time to challenge. There is a time to speculate. There is a time for change. There is a time for truth. The time is now. Welcome to Night Fright, your voice in the dark for paranormal and conspiracy. And now your host, Brent Holland.
Anthony, have you got a scary story to start us off with our Halloween special?
I'll tell you something, Brent. You want a scary story, you should work with distributors, because working with a distributor is an absolutely terrifying experience, but we can talk about the horror industry itself, the film industry in a little bit. Listen,
Anthony's a filmmaker. Go ahead.
I am a filmmaker, or I'm a liar by profession, actually. That's what I do. Because actors and filmmakers and storytellers, we're all professional liars. Same with broadcasters, Brent. We're all, you know what I mean. Affectionately so. But, one thing that I do take very seriously, and I know my good friend Barry Ewan here does too, and that's why it's fantastic that we can actually do the Halloween special of Night Fright this year with you, because
off the cuff too.
Totally off the cuff. Yeah, I called Barry in at the last minute and I said, listen, I'm going to be on the Brent Holland show tonight, and Barry, of course, we know and revere you. You do a great show, and we were happy just to kind of jump into the last minute. So
thank you.
Let's talk about ghosts, because I am, one thing I do take seriously is I love a good ghost story. I am a believer, and I've had my own fair share of encounters throughout the years. What do you see something behind me? What is it happening
over your
again?
Right, it is over your right shoulder. Is that so? Oh, maybe not.
Everybody's a critic.
Do you have cats? You have cats, eh?
I do have cats, absolutely.
So that'll work.
Cats
yeah, black
work.
cat too.
Sure.
Get the coffee going, get the tea going, get a beverage of your choice going, folks, because we are going to have one heck of a ride tonight. Ghost stories all night long, our Halloween special. Happy Halloween, everybody. Go ahead, Anthony, scaring me to death.
Scare you to death? Well, I don't know if I can actually... Listen, I don't know if it's going to scare you to death, but I've had several encounters with the paranormal throughout my life. And again, I've got a fascination with the paranormal. We made a film called Ghost Keepers a couple of years ago that was a haunted house story that kind of reflected my own sentiments about the supernatural and passing on. But I've always had this ability to sense when there's been suffering, misery, death in a place that I'm in. And I know that sounds kind of strange and morbid, but I'm going to give you an example. Many moons ago, in a former life, I taught for 3 years. I taught theater and I taught music, not very well, but when I went for my first interview at the school that I eventually ended up working, it's a school in a suburb outside of Montreal. It was built in the 1930s, and I walked in through the front doors, and I'm standing in the foyer waiting to meet with the vice principal. And at the right where I was standing, there was this wonderful, very, very eccentric marble staircase that led up to the second floor of the school. And as I'm standing there in the foyer, I felt this strange feeling of sadness, of morbidity, kind of wash over me, and I felt very uncomfortable in that specific spot. Now I went in, did the interview, got the job, everything was fantastic. Not too long afterwards, I was just kind of mentioning off the cuff to the administrative assistant who she must have worked there for at least 300 years. She knew a lot about the history of the school, and we're talking about how the school was founded by priests back in the 1930s, etc. And I said, did anything ever happen at the bottom of that stairwell, just outside of the principal's office? And she said, yeah, as a matter of fact, a few years after the school was founded, the founding priest took a tumble down those stairs and cracked his skull at the bottom of the stairs and died right there all those years ago. And that's just one of several examples, where I've found myself in a place and just get a very, very strange feeling. It's kind of like being in a room with Brent Holland, actually, when you think about it.
That's kind of creepy in its own right. Folks, Anthony D.P. Mann is our guest tonight, along with his buddy Barry Ewan, my buddy as well. We're broadcasting from Kingston tonight. It's our Halloween special.
Well, of
Happy
course it's
Halloween,
Halloween. That's
everybody.
why I'm wearing a top hat.
That's why should I take my mask off?
You think no, keep it on, please. It's more appealing. But you think I do this all? No, you know. Listen, Halloween, Barry. I know that Halloween is your favorite time of year as well.
It's my favorite holiday. Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Actually, I call it the day that the rest of the world catches up with me. So.
Barry, have you got a spooky story for us to start us off?
Oh, tons. And it's kind of like where to start. Like I actually kind of made some notes here. There are stories that I've gathered over the years from friends and family. So well, let's start with this one. This is a story. It was told to me by a friend of mine, by his grandmother. She told it directly to me. She told me that it happened to her when she moved to Kingston a long time ago. They moved into this house, and at night they would hear from the basement the sound of a baby crying.
Oh, see, babies, ghost babies are always terrifying.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And
So they would go down the basement. They would look around, try to find out where this noise was coming from. They didn't see a baby. They couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And this would happen night after night. And then one night it started up again. And the grandmother, she went to the basement door. She opened it up. She didn't turn on the light. She just looked down the stairs in the dark. And she said, "Oh, you poor thing. Is there anything we can do to help you?" And then the crying stopped right there.
Whoa.
And it never came back after that.
Whoa.
So I got this story directly from the grandmother.
Now, can you describe the house for us? Is Kingston folks?
They weren't living in the house when I met her. This was a house that they moved in when they first came to Kingston. They had moved since.
Okay,
But it would have been just an ordinary house.
Limestone, wood,
I don't know, but probably built around the 30s or something.
somewhere back there. I should just tell folks where Kingston is. For those of you that are unaware, Kingston, of course, is in Canada. It's right at the
We
point.
apologize.
It's right at the point, folks, where the St. Lawrence River meets with Lake Ontario, and Kingston is right there. It's about an hour and a half north of Syracuse for our American neighbors that are listening en masse right now. We're telling some ghost stories. Now, Kingston was founded late 1700s. A lot of the buildings are old limestone. Think London, England, especially when the fog comes in off the lake. It gets pretty creepy pretty fast. Anthony, you're a filmmaker. Now, we've worked on a film together called Phantom of the Opera, of which Barry's also acting in it and does a superb job. One of the things we did was we went down to an old theater here to shoot a great deal of it. You had an experience there. Can you set up the decor of the theater?
Yeah.
And also tell us that story?
Sure.
Because this creeped me out, folks. Let me tell you.
Creeped you out. I was there. And actually, I think you probably remember this story too, although you weren't there for the...
I wasn't there when it happened, but I remember you telling us about it.
It was our first day of shooting. Now, imagine, if you will, Convocation Hall at Queen's University was built in, I think it was 1911 or something like that. It's a very old theater.
Over 100 years.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful old theater, like with a balcony and woodwork, and we decided it was the perfect location to use for the opera house in our film. It wasn't at the Paris Opera House. We didn't set our film there. We actually set it in a turn of the century opera house. So this worked perfectly. So there are ghost stories associated with Convocation Hall.
There are a lot of haunted theaters around. I've got a haunted theater story, too, that I was present at.
Oh, good. Okay, good. We're going to have to talk about this. There's just this amazing feeling when you walk into that building. You feel, that it feels like a surreal location, especially in the dark, especially when you're setting up eerie lighting and there's nobody else in there but you and a couple of actors and you're trying to get a shot ready. So the very, very first day, I was standing at the foot of the stage left, getting my camera set up. we had a little bit of colored lighting in different parts of the building. And one of my actors, Terry Wade, the great Terry Wade, was sitting in the front row. We were chatting a little bit on and off just as I was casually setting this up. Now, film being film, of course, everything takes so long to do. You can tell I'm a filmmaker because all of my stories are long-winded. But see, film being film, everything takes so long to do. So, you just kind of chat a little bit and you're focused, you got your television. So I was talking to Terry and I saw Terry stand up and walk to the foot of the stage. And he just, his hands in his pockets, that type of thing, just kind of watching me as I'm doing what I'm doing. But I was oblivious to do it. And then I heard a commotion suddenly just outside the theater, and the doors in the back of the theater where the audience come in open wide, and in walk a procession of actors led by Terry Wade. My blood ran cold. And of course I looked to my right, and now there was nobody. There was nobody there. And it's funny, it didn't chill me as much as I thought it would have. Probably because in the film industry, time is money, so you don't have time to deal with the dead. And, just as well, it was probably a unionized ghost anyway. But, yeah, SAG, the Spook Actors Guild, right? So, anyway.
Cue ghosts. Can you cue ghosts? I don't think you can.
Can you cue ghosts? No, absolutely not.
So how did they get away with it on all those shows?
How do they get away with it?
Yeah.
They have very good agents.
Ah, that's what it is.
And anyway, so that, that was
union.
an experience there. And it was something that stuck with me. And it was, it's almost comical when you think of it, but it certainly makes you wonder. We shot in some very creepy locations during Phantom of the Opera. That building was one of them. We also shot downstairs at an old school where there's a television studio upstairs, actually. The local television studio is housed at an old school. And you'll
Not
remember
dropping any names, folks.
TV Kojiko, of course. TV Kojiko, right. Hopefully this
I used to go to that school, as a matter of fact, before they closed it
No
down.
wonder it's haunted.
Around late 1960s.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay,
That explains a lot of the activity there, then maybe.
Oh, possibly.
I don't remember any stories connected with the school though when I was going though. But anyway.
But in the basement, like they have this old unfinished limestone basement, and there's one scene where we shot where our main performer, the wonderful Savannah Kimmer, has a ghostly encounter. And I remember when we shot that scene, I felt so uncomfortable in that one location. Whenever I watch that scene on film, there's some sort of a sentiment by association that takes place, and I always feel nervous. I always feel uncomfortable because there was something about that one spot. I felt that familiar yet unfamiliar, wash of emotion, where something's happened there. I don't know what it is, and it's probably just as well that we didn't find out.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
I think that translates very well to the film as well.
Good.
There's
Well,
some very dark.
And a fantastic score. Listen, Mr. Brent Holland, folks, is
Where's my wallet?
He's a wonderful broadcaster. He's a fantastic host, and he's very, very gracious and giving. But listen, he's a very talented man, and the music that he did for Phantom of the Opera is just stellar. In fact, it makes the movie.
I have to pay Anthony a beer after for that, so
I'm collecting on that too.
it's going to be collected. We'll be doing the Guinnesses after.
music in my mind, your music. My soul wants to sing.
Listen to the enchanted violin, Christine. Let the strains of the music release you from all your worries. There is but one thought tonight. Rest. Soon you will sing on the opera stage, and the world will clamor at your feet.
I cannot.
You are almost ready. It is almost time. I would never deceive you, Christy.
The angel is my friend.
There is only the angel. Rest.
Forgive me, mademoiselle. I did not mean to start you.
Forgive me, sir. I should have been paying attention.
Do not fret. What is your name?
My name? I'm Christine.
That is a very pretty name. Christine. What is your last name?
Why is it that you wish to know my name, sir?
I am conducting business here with Mr. Fuhrman, and I am hoping to meet many new friends. What is your last name, Christine?
Dare?
And what is it that you do here at the theater, Mademoiselle Dare?
I assist Mrs. Gray with the costumes, laundering, preparing for performances.
I see. You are very busy then, Christine Dare.
I'd wager so, sir.
And do you have a husband or a lover, Christine? Oh. Oh, that question. Too personal? Forgive me, I did not mean to cause offense.
What did you say your name was, sir?
I don't believe I did say, Christine.
Barry, do you have a story about a theater that you wanted to tell the folks?
The Domino Theater. Like they'd moved, but they used to be at a location on the waterfront in a very old building. And we would hear that it was supposed to be haunted. Like people would tell me that, they'd be backstage and they'd put something down and it would disappear and then reappear, things like that. And so I was there. We were rehearsing Private Lives, and we'd finish rehearsing, and the set builder would be left behind to work on stage. And we came back the next day, and he said, "Well, you know what happened to me last night? I was, up on the ladder doing some work, and I heard footsteps on the floor above." And I thought, "Well, did any of you guys stay behind last night?" And go, "No, none of us did." And he says, "So what happened?" He says, "Well, I came down from the ladder, and I went up to the second floor. I said, 'Hello,' and I looked around. There was nobody there, right?" So he goes back to the stage, gets back up on the ladder, starts working again, and then again he hears these footsteps, very, very distinct, walking around upstairs, So he goes up again can't find anybody. And I said to him, "Well, were you scared?" He goes, "No, I was pissed off," going up and down that ladder, but still. I think I would have been a little unnerved if I'd been there late at night.
Absolutely, because I don't know what it is about a theater that it has all, every theater has a ghost.
Apparently.
Well, I have a theory on that. It's true. It's interesting. Phantom of the Opera, the actual book by Gaston Leroux, begins with the opera ghost really existed. He was not, as was long believed, a creature of the imagination of the artist or the corps de ballet. He existed in flesh and blood, although he assumed the complete appearance of a real phantom, that is to say, of a spectral shade. And
studying.
We can do the whole book right now if you like. But it's true. Every theater seems to have, every theater worth its salt anyway certainly has a ghost story. And I think that has to do, it all depends on what your belief mechanism is. Because if somebody's watching this right now and they have no interest or no belief in the spirit world, well, then we know this is going to mean nothing to them. This is going to be, just
We should have had your
claptrap.
friend Ted along. He's a big skeptic.
Ted, yeah.
Oh, but getting back to the domino for a minute.
Oh,
So
yeah.
then
Oh,
there
yeah.
was we were rehearsing one night. So we're about, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us on the
Yeah.
stage. And we're right in the middle of rehearsal. Then all of a sudden, all of us hear the sound of a grandfather clock chiming. And we were kind of looking around going, what the hell is that? There was no grandfather clock anywhere on the premises. It was like the weirdest thing. And we were all there. We all heard it at the same time. We're all looking at each other going, what?
What was that? What's going on?
So it was a very kind of uncanny moment, and I'm kind of, happy that I was there to experience that one.
Just to bring it into where I was going before I went off on a tangent about theaters. When you have people who are very, very sensitive individuals who are, delivering emotions, projecting emotions, projecting energies, the energies of the audience responding to that over decades and in some cases over a century or so. I think that leaves some sort of a residue, which makes a theater look like a very welcoming and very habitable place for residual energy that may remain after we have shedded off our mortal coil.
Let me ask Barry this, because Barry's been on stage many times, as you have, and I'll field this one to you as well. Barry, once you pass on, is a theater a place you would like to spend eternity?
Actually, I have said that, although I kind of qualified it. I said I'd like to, if I'm going to push off, I'd like to, die in a movie theater and then just hang around for eternity and see free movies,
Yeah.
So when people dip into their popcorn bag and they feel a hand coming back, we'll know who it is. How about you, Anthony? Would you like to spend eternity in a theater?
I'd love to, just as long as they don't only program Ibsen. No, I would absolutely. I would.
Don't
I'd
even
love to.
mention Ibsen.
I assure you that I've died on stage on many an occasion.
Oh.
So a theater to spend the rest of my afterlife in a theater. Sure. I mean, there's worse places to spend your afterlife.
Sure, far worse places.
Like a urinal.
Oh, yeah, that's not even. Oh, man, yeah,
What?
that would be a bad place. That would be a very bad
Actually, there are
place.
even haunted workplaces. Can you imagine you die and you still have to go to work every day?
No, that's when they don't go to heaven, they go to hell. Folks, www.nightfrightshow.com. There you will find Anthony Mann's link, and you'll be able to get in contact with Barry Ewan as well.
Terror of Dracula was shot here in Kingston a couple of years ago. It's the first film ever shot in Kingston, Ontario, to score a distribution deal with a Hollywood-based distributor. It is a faithful adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, endorsed by the Bram Stoker estate, starring Mr. Barry Ewan as Renfield. Am I in there too?
Yeah, you're in there somewhere.
I play Dracula.
Yeah, he plays Dracula.
You know what? This is our pride and joy on DVD right here. It's been featured in Fangoria magazine. It's been screened all over the world. It's available through worldwide multimedia. But we have a special edition.
www.nightfrightshow, as I said, .com. There you will find Anthony D.P. Mann's link to his website. Some of the movies he's done, as we mentioned before: Ghost Keepers, Dracula, Phantom of the Opera. He's working on Christmas Carol and Shrieker II. What is that? What's Shrieker II all about?
Well, Shrieker II is very exciting, actually. So I grew up. I grew up, and you kind of got it from your
I'd
teenage
already
years.
grown up.
You'd already
You were still growing up.
Yeah, we've never grown up. No, I was still growing up on movies made by Full Moon Entertainment, like the Puppet Master films, and prior to Full Moon, Charles Band, who was their founder, he had Empire Films, and they did the Reanimator films and Ghoulies and all these wonderful films that I loved when I was discovering horror films in the 80s and 90s. Chris Alexander, who is the editor-in-chief of Fangoria magazine, which is the Rolling Stone of horror film magazines. Chris is a Canadian. He's a great guy, and he's become a good friend to me. Chris, through one means or another, got me in touch with Charles Band. Mr. Band was looking for, the legendary Charles Band, was looking for for somebody to do a sequel to one of their older properties from the 1990s. And Shrieker was the film. And it intrigued me because it was sort of based on the same concept as Casting the Ruins, a wonderful short story by M.R. James, which has been made into several films, including Drag Me to Hell and Night of the Demon, famously in the 1950s. And folks, listen, if you haven't read Casting the Ruins, or if you haven't seen Night of the Demon, the 1958 film, put this program on hold right now. Put it on pause. Go watch the movie, and then come back to it. But just make sure you come back to the program. Anyway, so but Shrieker II, I pitched Charles Band a storyline, and before I knew it, fulfilling a lifelong dream of directing and appearing in, along with Barry. Barry's great in this film. Appearing in a film.
Only shot one scene.
Appearing in a film for Film and Entertainment. So it's going to hit next year. Shrieker II, Night of the Shrieker, with a score by Brent Holland.
And Barry, you're in the film as well. You play a magician.
Yes, a very run-down, kind of crappy magician.
A crusty old son of a gun.
When I first heard this sounds kind of like Jerry Lewis to me, you know.
Oh, is that where you went for your inspiration for the character? I was going to ask you that very question.
In the back of my mind, it's kind of Jerry Lewis-like, you know.
Does he believe magic is real, or is he just trying to pull the wool virtually over the kids' eyes?
Well, in this movie, yes. Apparently, he is an actual believer in black and white magic, but he's just not very good at it.
Is black magic real, guys?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I think definitely.
Any experiences? So. Any tales?
Wow. With the occult, Barry. You know,
there was one winter day where I got into my car and the entire driver's side window shattered into bits for no reason at all. And so I took it in. First, I thought somebody shot a gun at it or something like that, but I didn't see any projectiles around. But anyway, so I took it in to get fixed, and I said, "Have you ever heard of this happening before?" And the guy who worked at the shop says, "Nope, never heard of this happening before." And the funny thing is, all that week I've been talking to people about witches and witchcraft. I said, well, that's it. The witches didn't like me talking about them, giving away their secrets. So
they put
a whammy on me, you know.
Isn't that interesting? Wow.
I'm going to build an arc and go back to the theater thing. Can you tell the folks, Anthony, the whole lore around the Macbeth, how you're not supposed to say
Don't even say that in front of people who have anything to do with the stage.
That's right. That's
a big no-no.
Well, okay, so essentially it's known as the Scottish play, right?
Right.
Or if you're very brave, Macbee. That's as far as you're able to go, is Macbee.
Macbee, yes, the Scottish play. So the Scottish play, if you utter the play's title in a theater, it is you've essentially doomed yourself. You've cursed the evening's performance, and there's a ritual.
Yes.
That involves going outside the theater, turning around 3 times, spitting
and cursing. And then knocking on the door and asking for permission to come back in.
And that will exorcise the curse. I mean, in all honesty, I've never bought into it. I don't
know. There was one production about 10 years or so ago where somebody did it, and they said the forbidden word, and then it just seemed like there was a jinx after that. There were a lot of people getting injured, a lot of people getting sick, you know. So who's to say?
Interesting stuff. Now, in Kingston, we have numerous amounts of old buildings, like really old buildings, folks. And some of them are giant, some of them are small. A lot of them are old farmhouses. One in particular comes to mind, and that's Kingston Penitentiary right here. And this is a place, folks.
Kingston Penitentiary. There are some serious ghost stories about that place.
Yeah, there really are.
Are you prepared to tell us some of those?
Well, sure. These have been passed on to me by people who worked there. So.
Now, I should just tell people, Kingston Penitentiary, folks, it's closed down now. It's still there. It's kind of Alcatraz North. Now, it was a maximum security institution since 1837. A lot of stuff has happened there, and we house the worst of the worst of the worst criminals in Canada, including serial killers, rapists, murderers, everything you can think of were housed there.
Internet talk show hosts as well.
and I think some of us are still there. Whenever I drive by this place, once again, when the fog is coming in off the lake, you can hardly see a foot in front of you. Think London, England. That's the best way to put it. There's just a vibe around this place that says malevolent. Barry, can you tell us some of the stories you may have heard?
Okay, so here are some of the stories that I've heard about Kingston Pen. One is there's a person who committed suicide there by leaping off a staircase, and there's a story going that sometimes at night you hear the sound of footsteps running and then the scream. So that's a pretty doozy ghost story there. Another one I heard about women working in an office there, and one of them suddenly felt like a cold hand on her back, and she jumped and screamed. And she goes, "Who did that?" You know, everyone's going, "We weren't anywhere near you," right? And there's another story I heard about during lunch hour. Somebody saw who they recognized to be an inmate hanging around somebody's office door. And they went to get this person whose office it was. They knew who it was. And they said, "Well, you know, inmate so-and-so, I see him hanging around your office. Are you supposed to see him or something like that?" And they go, "You sure it was inmate so-and-so?" "Oh, yeah, I recognize him." He says, "Well, don't you know? He died last week."
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Don't worry about it. He's dead. You know, he's not a security risk anymore.
He'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Did they ever have any hangings or any corporal punishment that went on there? Any
Yeah.
Very likely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there is a hanging tower just up the street from it, too.
Well, actually, that's kind of like
Is that an urban legend
thing. It was kind of named a hanging tower. But
Can you tell us the urban legend around that?
Well, it's just kind of a misconception. People see this structure, and
I believe was there not like one very famous hanging that took place there? It was a woman.
I don't think so. It's just that there's something very ominous about this structure when you see it. You know, sitting there all by itself. You know, it's a brick structure. And it's very tall and narrow, right? So you kind of wonder, you know, what could its function be? And because it's so tall and narrow, people kind of assume that its function was to hang people, but you know, it really wasn't. They had hangings down by the courthouse, apparently. Actually, Kingston, we have like a haunted walk tour, and that's one of the places they go to, you know. So they confirmed that hangings took place down by the courthouse.
That's right, yes, they certainly did. Mm-hmm. Built the gallows and, yeah.
So what is it about Kingston, Nick? Is this reputation of being so haunted? I have a theory on it. I think it could be something with the energy produced and perhaps the limestone interacting with that energy along with the water from the lake, creating some kind of residue that lingers on after people have passed.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's all just theory. I mean, Kingston is just an old city. It's more than 300 years old.
Yeah, it's one of the oldest in Canada.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Kingston was the first capital city of Canada post-Confederation. So it was the very, very first capital of Canada. So it certainly has an exceptional history and a lot tore through Kingston, famine and illness and yeah.
And we have a theater downtown called the Grand Theater as well, folks, that Harry Houdini played at. Now I haven't.
And it's also haunted.
Yeah. Is that right? Do you know any stories about
I've heard people who worked in the upstairs portion, the Baby Grand. They would have things going on, like the lights suddenly going off and coming on by themselves, you know, and things like that, you know.
Altering the electricity. Now, let's go back to the movie making. Now, when you're making Shrieker II, Anthony, and you're looking for locations around town, is there anything in specific you're looking for?
Well,
Kingston offers it. Perhaps
well, to be honest, for a film like Shrieker II, which takes place in present day, it's not as challenging to find locations as say it was for Terror of Dracula. We shot it at Fort Henry, which of course is an exceedingly haunted and legendary location in here in the city. They gouged us to shoot there. I don't mind saying that, but you know, we were fortunate to have
You're
shot.
Not watching this show, are they?
Hey, it is what it is. But you know, it certainly served as an excellent backdrop for the film, and we benefited from it. And yeah, there were all sorts of feelings and shadows.
Didn't Heidi say she had an experience when we were shooting out there?
Yes, I believe she did.
Yeah, she was out in the empty parade ground.
Yeah.
And you guys were shooting somewhere else, and she heard the sound of marching. Is that
Yeah,
it?
she heard the sound
heard the sound of
which is a
marching.
very common occurrence there too. And we saw all sorts of things like doors slamming and noises and I remember there's a great little anecdote while we were shooting Dracula, because there's these tunnels that run under the fort, and they go into these larger antechambers, and it's a remarkable place. You really don't get to see much of that on the tour. We're doing a scene where I played Dracula inside the action. Dracula was. Sorry, I just got a volume thing happen here, where I played Dracula, and we had just finished shooting this extensive scene, or we were halfway through the scene. That's right, halfway through this extensive scene, and I started to have a hard time with my beard. I had this beard as old man Dracula, and it was coming loose, so I had to go to the dressing area, which was through this tunnel and up into the courtyard. It was a good 5-minute walk to get the spirit gum touched up on my beard. So I brought our intern, who was like 15 years old, with me to just to walk me through and everything, and because I got the makeup and the costume on, and I didn't want to break character, so I'm walking very, very stoically through the tunnels, very upright and keeping my pace slow because I don't want to break the character. And all of a sudden, I know there was a lighting issue with the tunnels because there were these long stretches of darkness, and again, I'm already skittish as it is. Right down at the end of the tunnel, I saw something fluttering, and like just fluttering, and I heard this strange sound, and it was running at me, and I panicked. I turned and I yelped out loud, and I sped off past the past the intern. I took off right behind her, and it's funny because when she tells the story, she's walking, following me. I'm doing my thing, very, very stoic and such. And all of a sudden, she hears Dracula scream and turn and run behind her. And here's Dracula being pursued by this little fruit bat about yay big. It was coming down, And anyway, I mean, there's so much atmosphere there that we just couldn't resist. Just kind of capturing some of that.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
Folks, we're also being joined now by Kingstown Ted. How you doing, Ted?
Can you hear me now?
I can.
All right, what's going on?
What's going on? Thank you for joining us. And by the way, folks, Kingstown Ted.
I recognize this guy. Don't we do something like this too from time to time?
We used to, I hear. We used to.
Happy Halloween, everybody. We're having a blast tonight. Kingstown Ted and Anthony D.P. Mann and Barry Ewan are joining us. And Kingstown Ted, of course, and Anthony have a podcast called HorrorEtc.com. And I'm going to ask Kelly. Kelly, would you mind putting their link up on our show and give it a predominant place so people can click right through? They do this incredible podcast, folks, every week on the latest horror films, genre films, and things of that nature. Ted, we're telling ghost stories. Have you got a good ghost story for us?
There's no such thing as ghosts.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. And here comes the dynamic, folks. Here it comes. How come
Actually,
there's
I know
no
that
such
Ted
thing
does
as
have a
ghosts?
good story. Ted does have a good story about your walk in the woods.
Okay, well, this is only my own perception, but fun nonetheless. Quick version is, newly arrived into the city, living in a rural setting, so I'm new to town, and I have a couple dogs that require walking for exercise, and so my evening constitutional was to put them on a leash and take a nightly walk, and it would be dark. It'd be pushing midnight on our return of this trip. And Anthony, if you recall, this is probably the most blood-curdling experience I've ever had in my lifetime. Yeah. And so walking these dogs along this very narrow path with high overgrown foliage, shoulder height. And the path circled around a quarry. It's relatively remote. I say city, but we're outside of the suburbs, and it's rather lonesome. And as I'm passing along this lonesome trail late at night, strangely enough, I just turned a corner and I happened upon a young boy standing there. 11:30 p.m., thereabouts, and I'd guess he was I don't know, 8 to 10 years old, that range. I'm not very good at guesstimating.
See, the
buddy.
ghost kids are always the scariest. Yeah,
Did
yeah.
he say to you,
10
I
years
am the
This kid had
dark?
no business being out there at this time of night alone. And of course, the dogs they stop in their tracks, and my head's down. I'm occupied. I've got a podcast in my earphones, and I'm not paying attention. And by the time I look up to yell at the dogs, I'm literally face to face with this apparition.
Oh, you mean it wasn't a kid?
It was a kid, Brent, but I tell you, man, by the time your brain is done trying to like process this sudden change of events, my head is spinning. I don't know what's up, and you just sort of stagger. And I blurted out something like, "Are you lost? Are you okay? Is there something you need?" And he just turned and walked away, the opposite direction. What the hell do you make of that? So I pull the dogs in on this leash, and I do a 180, and I'm out of there. That's enough of this for me, but I still can't explain that. I mean, obviously, it was just some kid, probably. I mean, that's what they do, I guess. They wander at night, but
Is that what kids
I've seen
do?
anything quite like it before.
Is that what the kids do, Barry? I don't know. Do the kids do these things these days?
When I was that age, we weren't allowed out after 7 p.m., you know?
Well,
That's right. When you were that age, that's because the Tyrannosauruses would have got you after a certain.
The
when
first
it's
50 years
unexpected,
of
there's
childhood are
no-
the worst, they tell me.
Ted, was there a feeling, was there coldness around it and all those cliches that you always hear, or
No.
nothing like that?
But
I think he was in the flesh, but man, just about made me leap out of mine, I gotta say.
Yeah, no kidding. And me too. It would have scared the bejesus out of me as well.
Speaking of dogs, my boss was walking his dog, and they happened to go by the Cataraqui Cemetery, right?
Oh.
And so they're right by the cemetery, and the dog stops, and then it goes like this. It goes
Oh.
What's
like
he
it's
looking at?
watching something going by.
Oh, that can't be good in any sense. This is not going to end well. You can just tell right away.
So of course he comes to work and tells us the story the next day, and we go, "Yeah, it's pretty cool," you know.
Ted, I'm gonna ask you to relate another story because it's always funny when it happens to Ted. It's always going to be the person that that has the least amount of belief in this, who they're going to find his body one day. So, your camping trip, the summer of Blair Witch.
Yeah, okay, so I've got, actually, if you've got the time, I can relate 2 quick anecdotes for you.
Take your time.
The one Anthony refers to, all 3 of these stories have freaked me out to my very core, and so I carry them with me. But I'm camping, it's high school, I'm maybe 18, 17, thereabouts, and we are off in the middle of God's country, where no man should be, no man nor beast. And so we're camped out of this location, and we know the route we took in, there's no other way in there. And so for anyone else to be in the area would be very disconcerting. It was completely vacated. We camp out, we have beers as you do, and we turn in for the night. Next morning, I awake, look outside the tent flap, and there were footprints. Footprints right up to the tent, all around the campsite, and then footprints had left on the trail we came in. I don't know where these feet came from, but literally it was dozens of miles away from anywhere. So I don't know who was living out there or who was hanging out our campsite. Traipsed around right outside the flap, Barry. Like there's just, you can't, that's frightening.
That is
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
Did you pack up and get the heck out of there? Because that's what I would have done. I would
We
have.
felt we had strength in numbers. There's half a dozen of us and we were cocksure, but you know, there's no accounting for
And the summer of the Blair Witch
Stay out of the woods.
What's
Now,
the
friend
other
of
one
mine,
you
he
had
was-
in mind, Anthony, for Ted to tell us?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
last one.
Was it the one?
So I've got a younger daughter. She's, at the time this happened, 6 years old. She's an innocent young thing. She hasn't really told any stories that I'm aware of. If she has, she's very, very good at manipulating me because I think she's very forthright. But packing up to get ready for school one morning, and I'm sort of hollering, you know, let's go. We got to get our boots on. Let's go. I'm at the front door. And she's paused at our kitchen. The geography is important. The point is I couldn't see what she was looking at, but she's in the kitchen and she's staring across the kitchen towards our refrigerator. And she says, she comes to the door with her boots in her hand and she cautiously says to me, Daddy, who's in the kitchen? Who's the lady in the kitchen? Do you remember that? I said, well, I'm not sure what you mean. And it was early morning. I hadn't had coffee yet and I wasn't processing well. And so I said, I don't think there's anybody in the kitchen. And I walked her over there because she was quite convinced. And I looked at the fridge. There's nobody there. And she said, but there was a woman there, and she was wearing black. As a matter of fact as anything, and I've got an eyewitness with me. Alexis, you can confirm this, right?
You saw a woman in black.
A woman in black!
Wow.
Our house isn't old enough to be haunted, I don't think, but what?
Well, yeah, but now that said, your house is not too far away from, say, the Cataraqui Cemetery, and I mean, just because it's a new development now, doesn't mean that there's history in that neck of the woods.
Well, Anthony, just we're actually adjacent to an old folks' home here. It's not our direct neighbor, but it's a couple buildings down the street is an old folks' home.
It's close.
Of course, when the ambulances come with the lights on late at night, but the sirens aren't going and they're in no big hurry, they're there to pick up. So, of course, some people have passed on just a few doors away. So maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, could be.
It could be. Yeah, that's a very good point. And just at the back of you as well is a great big forest. Well, not a great big forest, where coyotes howl at night. And I remember the first time I heard the coyotes in the middle of the night, scared the bejesus out of me. I thought they were wolves.
Coyotes, never mind the coyotes. There's a few cougars in that neck of the woods, too.
Oh, gee.
I can hear them.
It's called Divorce Alley, is what we.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. www.nightfright show. We're going to have some great laughs tonight, folks. Probably at my expense, but that's okay. We've got Barry Ewan joining us, Anthony D.P. Mann, and Horror, etc. Co-podcaster with Anthony, Kingstown Ted. And it looks like Alexis is in the background. Hi, Alexis. How are you?
Actually, Alexis is also a part-time host of the Horror, etc. podcast. It's funny, she gets more fan mail than I do.
And she is an actress as well in the upcoming Shrieker II.
Scenes with kids and dogs, they say.
Alexis did very well. She actually appeared in a scene in Shrieker II, and so she beat her dad to be in a full moon movie. Think about that. Oh, look, the eyebrows, good.
Oh, well, we offered Ted. He could just hang around the back with a drink in his hand,
I asked Alexis why. I asked Alexis why she struggled so much with delivering the line, and I said, I think that you were supposed to be a little more snarky, and she explained that she just isn't a snarky person. So that's the reason why it didn't come through, Anthony.
Okay, actually, I can assure you she did a fantastic job, and
she did.
It's interesting. I'm working with multiple generations of the Kingstown family here. It's crazy. Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's very disturbing, and apparently there's some ancestor in black that's haunting her kitchen too. I don't know.
No, and upstairs. She saw it again upstairs. It was like last.
Did you really see her again, Alexis?
I didn't. She did.
Who did?
Wow.
Upstairs. That's why she didn't go upstairs alone.
Only animals and innocent eyes can bear witness to these interdimensional things, right?
Ted sees nothing.
I see nothing. Now, I don't want to give you the wrong impression, folks, of Kingston. It really is a beautiful place to come and live and come and visit and stuff. But we do have...
And it's a great place to die, too.
Oh, there's graveyards everywhere here. And they go back, right? Even Sir John A. Macdonald, and for our American folks, he's our George Washington.
Actually, Sir John A. Macdonald, they cremated his body. He's still burning.
Oh.
I thought he would have gone up just like that.
Oh, that's it. I'm going to give up. I'm stopping hosting this right now. I'm just going to let these guys go at it because it's fantastic when they go at it. You got to watch their podcast. horror-etc.com. You will not be sorry. Barry, let's go back to you. Do you have any other spooky stories? Now, all the penitentiaries.
I mean, the more we talk about it, like Ted will say something and I'll think, oh, that reminds me of a story I heard from somebody else, like dogs. Now he's saying about his daughter seeing something. This reminds me of a story that somebody told me about their young son seeing a person in the house, right? And they were kind of like thinking imaginary playmates. Oh, well, there's this man in the kitchen sitting at the table. And they go, man, no, I don't see anybody. And go, well, what's he look like? And they go, well, he's just a guy. And they're trying to get some details. And they go, well, what color are his eyes? And they go, oh, he doesn't have any eyes.
Oh, my gosh.
So I thought that was kind of an interesting story.
Okay, so I'm going to say the first time that I ever saw a ghost, depends on your belief system. The first time I saw a ghost, I was 5 years old. I was sitting in the kitchen in a house that we were renting in a suburb just outside of Montreal. I had no idea what ghosts were at this point. This is before I had an understanding of the supernatural. And I remember vividly sitting in the kitchen, excuse me, and looking down this long hallway, and seeing a figure, a man dressed in white, slowly come down the hallway and then turn and walk into my room. And I asked my mother about that. I remember, Mom, I just saw a man in white walk into my room, and it chilled her to the bone. That old Irish, supernatural culture, superstitious culture. Anyway, I remember that particular house that we lived in always had a very, very strange sense of foreboding. I was always uncomfortable in the backyard. I always felt nervous going to sleep alone there. It was one place that we lived in where I never felt comfortable, and I couldn't explain it why. I used to have terrible nightmares there when I was a kid.
Can I ask you a question? Was this Chateauguay?
No, it was Villa Sal, actually. But again, LaSalle has a lot of history, and I'll never forget that. That was my first, I believe, my first experience with a ghost.
I had a friend in Villa Sal. I still do have a friend in Villa Sal, and he told me a story, and you can find it. It's Wayne Franks, folks. It's in the archives. He was telling me a story how his neighbor was out in her backyard digging and hit something very hard, and sure enough, it was a tombstone. There used to be an old farm there, and that was the area where they buried the bodies in the farm, because, they wouldn't bring them to a cemetery per se. They would just have a family plot right there in the farm. And he's had all kinds of weird things going on in his house, including him and his wife seeing apparitions and everything else of older people from the 1700s and the 1800s. He's even claims he's had a marching band come through the hallway. And when he woke up to find out why the dog was going crazy, his son was out saying, "What's going on in the hallway?" So, he wasn't just imagining it. There was absolutely something going on. So it's pretty frightening when you stop and think about things like that. Have you guys ever had any experiences like that where Ted's just related one where he's seen an apparition. Have you had
I've seen a ghost in a theater. As I was arriving early for a rehearsal, and I came in the front door, and there's a long hallway that goes along the side of the stage, and then it goes to the left to where the costume room is. So I walked in, I looked down this hallway, and I saw somebody just turning the corner, and I thought it was the woman who ran the theater. So I walked down the end of the hall to the end and looked over to the left where the hall ends. Nobody there. All the doors were locked. Went out on the fire escape in case someone went. Nobody there on the fire escape.
Nothing. Just an. Can you describe what were they wearing?
Well, it was very quick, but I got the sense it was a woman because she was wearing a long skirt. She was just kind of like just going just round the corner just when I saw her.
Did you ever try and ask anybody if they had come across the same type of thing, Barry? In that
other people had said they got like weird feelings in there. Like somebody said. They went in the dressing room, and there was like a wire hanger hanging on a coat rack, and it was like shaken by itself, and there was nobody in the room to disturb it, right?
Have you guys ever come across a cold spot and had an uneasy feeling?
Well, I've heard of them, though. There was somebody that I know, they rented a house, and they said there was a definite cold spot, and also the radio would come on by itself, and they would see the dial moving by itself and the little indicator on the station going back and forth.
Oh gosh.
Are these things that people hear and eventually stick in movies as some sort of mechanism
you get some common elements?
Yeah, you get some common elements. You get tropes, and it's funny. You sent along an email today.
Because the movie Ouija just came out.
The new tropes, the new cliches, right? But I do think that sometimes there are certain consistencies, and it's the more subtle consistencies that intrigue me more than what everybody commonly believes to be a haunting. For instance, when ghosts appear, I really don't think they appear translucent. I think that if you have a ghostly encounter, if you're tapping into a residual energy, you're going to experience that energy as it existed. I don't think you're going to see somebody kind of, transparent kind of shiver by. Or maybe, again...
you hear different things. Like, people say they see a ghost and it appears solid, but then it walks through a wall. Or in some cases, only part of it is visible. Like, it's only visible from, like, the waist up or something like that. There was this other story I heard at Hotel Dieu where someone was down in the change room.
It's a hospital.
And a nun came in, right? And he said, "Oh, well, can I help you, sister?" And she didn't say anything. She just kept walking. Then he looked down. He saw she had no feet. Like she was like erased at the ankles, right? She just kept walking and walked to a wall, you know, and that was the last he saw of her, you know.
Wow.
That
What would
sounds
you,
like
what
a
would you do
time
if that
warp
happened
thing.
to you?
Probably run. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that
Wow.
would just be too freaky.
Absolutely.
So this would be an old hospital, folks, by the way, limestone again. And obviously the Catholic nuns would have been in Catholic nunnery uniforms back
And
then.
evidently, even death can't help you, you know, break certain habits.
Oh,
I'm gonna hit him now.
okay then. Let's go back
hospitals are a natural place for ghosts to appear because, you know, a lot of people pass away in hospitals.
Sure they do. Sure they do. Yeah.
Ted, is there a place in Kingston that you avoid because it has a malevolent feeling?
Your place, Brent.
Listen to this guy. He's just like reeling them off. No, I am a confirmed skeptic, and not to be a wet blanket on the whole affair, but that's not my bag. I don't go in for ghosts. I find ghost stories infinitely enjoyable, though. And the concern I have, and I'll just throw it out because, Brent, you earlier mentioned the fact that I talked about my story where I encountered an apparition.
Yeah.
But the truth of it is I never once referred to it as an apparition. I said it was a very odd encounter. And so it's entirely plausible in my mind that this is just some kid that's wandering. I mean, they live, there's neighborhoods, they can walk. It's some kid. It's not a ghost. But if I choose to see that as it's a ghost I encountered, in my mind, I'm fully convinced. And when I tell a story to someone else, and they're a skeptic, and they say to me, well, that's not possible. Ghosts don't exist. And I become irate. And I become argumentative because I'm quite certain that I saw a ghost. And the other party will say, but you didn't see a ghost, but I did, but you didn't, but I did. And it goes back and forth. So there's no convincing a person of what they believe or what's true. You kind of only have to go by your own sort of bearings, right? And Anthony and I, we've discussed this lots and lots. He's a believer. I'm not a believer, but we get along fine because we both enjoy ghost stories.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's the commonality in a ghost story that you guys gravitate towards?
A commonality? I don't know.
Ghost stories have a way of making you feel uneasy, right? And because it always blurs the line between life and death, and it raises the specter of what lies beyond. And if it's not the most positive existence, if it's a tortured soul, that's quite enough. You know,
what is the criteria to become a ghost? Like that you die suddenly and you're not aware you're dead, or you die unhappily and therefore you still have some kind of a score to settle on Earth, so you don't go where you're supposed to go. You know, so the positive side is if there's such things as ghosts, it means there's an afterlife. But the negative side is, well, you know, maybe that afterlife isn't very pleasant. You know.
We're coming up to break in just 2 minutes. I want to ask this next question to Alexis. Alexis, what are you going out as for Halloween?
Maleficent.
Horns and everything.
Is that right? Wow. What's your dad going out as?
I've decided to adopt my standard Michael Myers accoutrement. I have a blue jumpsuit, a rubber mask, and a bloody knife, and that's really all you need. Piece of cake.
How about you guys? Are you dressing up for Halloween, going to a Halloween costume party at all?
I actually am going to a costume ball this year, and I think I'm going to go as, I don't know, some kind of variation on the Big Bad Wolf, or I do have a collection of masks and things. I don't know. I might try something different this year. I haven't given it much thought. It's still an eternity away. We're what, 3 days away? 4 days away?
4, I think.
It's an eternity.
Barry, if you were to dress up, maybe you do. I don't know. What would you?
No, I don't. I very seldom do. Like Halloween, I'm usually at home. I'm greeting the kiddies, handing out the candy.
The apples with razor blades.
There. And then when that all dies down, I just kind of retreat to the good old video dungeon and put on some favorite horror movies, and that's my Halloween.
Anthony D.P. Mann is our guest tonight, along with Barry Ewan, and all the way from Kingstown, also known as Kingston, Ted, and Alexis. I'm Brent Holland for Night Fright.
listening to Night Fright and your host, Brent Holland. The time is now. Your voice on the dark for paranormal and conspiracy.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. NightFrightShow.com.